Welcome to Forensic Friday.
where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all. Oh, yeah.
So, have you recorded a lot of episodes yet?
We have actually, 130, something like that.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
So
Yeah.
here was our goal. So Nat and
That's
I
a lot. That's
have
way more
worked,
than me.
well, listen, we've worked together forever, Nat and I.
Yes.
And we were like, we'll just start a podcast. And the way we are, we will do it. Now,
Right.
whether or not it will be good, it might take a minute.
hmm
Our commitment was we are going to record every week, come hell or high water, for a year. And
Wow.
so we really did stick to that pretty well.
Yeah.
We're learning so much. And people like you are so generous to come on and share your time and your story. But
Yeah.
we are so pumped to interview you.
I
Oh,
know.
good. Wow. Thank you.
We're so excited.
You're an
To-
amazing human.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot.
I was listening to some of your episodes and I was like, girl,
Yeah.
we have questions if you're like
Yeah.
obviously within respect of your story and all of that, but we are just and we'll tell you a little bit about what we do as well.
Yeah, no. And when I come on podcasts, I share a lot. You can really ask me anything.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much an open book with my story, you know.
I appreciate that.
It's powerful for people in a situation like the one that you were in to hear that their experiences are not just them, because that's part of the lie.
Exactly.
And then to see someone as lovely and put together as yourself saying, no, this can happen. And so what Nat and I do, we work with offenders. We've worked with survivors for years too, but we work with
Oh,
offenders.
interesting.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
part of what we want to talk about today is just how important it is for Nat and I to stay connected with survivors, because
hmm
when we work with the offenders, and we're hard on them, girl, can I tell you?
Right. I always find so much interest in people who work with the offender because that's actually such a vital part in survivors getting clarity is talking to people who work with offenders. And it's just like Lundy Bancroft. There's some stuff about him right now
Yes.
out there, but he worked with offenders, and I think that's why a lot of women trusted the things he was telling them about the way offenders think because
Yeah.
he had that inside look. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
really important.
Baby Natalie's like,
Do you live in the same state, both of you?
yeah.
We
Okay.
do. So we actually work every day in our day job together. So
Oh, wow.
we
Okay.
have for a really long time. So Natalie was hired as an intern in, I want to say 2016, 2017, something like that. And she worked with me, and then I got into domestic violence work around that time, but I've been a therapist for almost 20 years.
Oh,
And
okay.
we really have grown up in this together. So we've both been working with offenders. I've been working with offenders my whole career, but DV since about 2017.
Yeah.
Colorado, I'm on the application review committee for the Domestic Violence Offender Management Board at a state level. And we train, I'm a clinical supervisor. Nat's almost a clinical supervisor. We're getting there. And we really are, I think we have a significant voice in Colorado for sure around how offender treatment works. And we'll tell you more about that later. But um,
hmm
we are fascinated by this work. For me, prevention was we can take care of wonderful people like you who've been hurt after
Right.
the fact. We can sometimes help them get out. But if we can get to the offender, we might be able to stop it before it happens,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
before somebody gets hurt again, at least.
Right.
So that's one of the things that keeps us going for sure.
Yeah. No, that's really good.
We've already talked this morning, and we're going to get into this, but it's a good little teaser. So Nat and I were talking this morning before you hopped on, and we are not immune to getting snowed,
Mm-hmm.
the people that we work with.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
That's one of the things we'll talk about because that's something you talked about in like your story. And
yes, I can talk about
um
that a lot. Yeah.
yes, so I'm so excited.
Oh,
I'm
I'm so excited.
excited
I'm
for it.
so
Oh my
excited.
goodness.
Well, Nat,
Yeah.
you can kick us off, girl, and then Grace, we
Okay.
want to hear whatever you're comfortable sharing. If you need any breaks, take a break. If you have
Mhm.
things you're like, girls, I don't want to talk about that, you just redirect. We'll cut it out. My husband's a producer.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so used to doing podcasts. I mean, I'm pretty used to like talking about it. I mean, I can just share, like, go through parts of my story. We can just talk about abuse in general. I'm sure it'll just flow
I
however it
love it.
does.
Awesome. Well, Grace, we are so freaking excited to have you on our show. It was so random. So Janine actually sent me one of your posts and was like, "Girl, connect with her." And I was like, "Heck yes." One, you have the best name because that's my daughter's name.
100%. We love a good
Oh,
Grace.
We love a good Grace.
oh,
And
that's so sweet.
two, one of the things that drew, I think, Janine and I to you is how open you are with your story. And that's kind of
Yeah.
a rarity with survivors of domestic violence. And so we're so thankful that you're willing to share whatever you're willing to share and that you are an advocate for individuals who go through what you go through and or what
Yeah.
you've been through.
I
So,
love it. I'm so excited. We're going to talk about a ton today, I'm sure.
yeah.
But, I always say at the beginning, my big belief with starting my podcast was, and my advocacy in general, was that we can only really understand abuse as a whole if we hear survivor stories. Like,
Mm.
hearing it in the form of storytelling is the only way you can really understand coercive control, which is just that power dynamic that you find really hard to explain.
Mhm.
Storytelling is the only way to really see it from that bird's eye view.
Mhm.
Because my biggest question from survivors is, why does my abuser tell me that I'm the abusive one? Why does he attack my character and tell me that I've got it all wrong? And it's so hard to prove that to someone unless you hear someone else's story and then you're like, oh, I see how that's a control tactic now, you
Yes.
know?
Well, and what
Yeah.
grabbed me, Grace, and the reason I sent it to Natalie, and I was like, this one immediately
Yeah.
is, and you're our first guest that we have reached out to blind. So
Yep.
we've had people
Oh,
on who we know, who we work with. You're the first person who I saw your story and we had to talk to you. And the reason is it's so compelling what you included, even in that short little clip.
Mhm.
It was the text messages, specific.
oh, that one. Yeah.
Girl, I'm telling you, that is what
Mhm.
the people need because you don't know to that specificity. People will say, I'm a survivor of domestic violence, or he hit me, or even he strangled me. But what gets lost sometimes is the day-to-day communication. And you gave us so much in that short little clip that even things I don't
Hmm.
think about doing this work every day that I was like, we have to talk to her. We
Mhm.
have to talk to her.
Yes.
People
Yeah.
need to hear what you have to say.
I
Yes.
love that so much. It's so interesting you brought up that post that you found me through. The reason I made that post in the first place was because again, it shows that storytelling. You can see how the abuser sometimes acts like the most charming, amazing partner in the world, and then on the other days they're acting like just horrific. So I actually am a big believer that the glue that holds the cycle of abuse together is those days where they give you flowers and they
Yes.
say they're sorry and
Yes.
they seem to be taking ownership.
Yes.
That's the biggest reason women come to me and say, but I don't think it's abuse. I'm really struggling to even see that this is domestic violence because he's so, so nice to me sometimes. So in my work, I actually put more emphasis on the good quote unquote
Mhm.
phases in the cycle versus when they're being horrific, because
Yeah.
that's when we get tripped up. So.
Yes. It's so interesting that you say that too, because as we mentioned a little bit before, Janine and I work with the offenders. And so we'll go over the cycle of violence and, the part that you're talking about that women stay for is the reconciliation and the honeymoon.
Hmm.
Yes.
And what's wild about those phases is one, like if you actually dive into what's going on in those phases, the reconciliation and honeymoon, there's no genuine. Yours was tricky. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that I realized with yours.
Yeah.
But most of the time, they don't come with an action plan. They just apologize. They come with flowers. They are so sorry. And then
Yeah.
we're back in the honeymoon phase. Everything's good again. But your situation, Janine,
Yeah.
I am telling you,
Oh, I know.
this individual was so
He
tricky.
he was a man with a plan. He
He was a man,
he
Yes.
but you represent the partner of every man that we work with who stays with the victim, the survivor.
Yes.
You represent that because they're in therapy. And so
Yeah.
they're coming home with, I learned about this today. And I
Yes.
want to take timeouts now. And I learn I'm taking accountability for this and this, or I'm sober now, whatever.
Oh, I could go on and on about this subject. And so my ex, which I can give you some background on our
Yes.
relationship, but
Yeah,
he
tell us your
was
story.
yeah, when I say he was a man with a plan, I mean, when he would be in the apology phase with me, he would always back it up with what he was going to do to follow through on that
Yep.
apology. So he was a pro at, and I
Yep.
think in some way he did have genuine excitement over this new leaf he thought he was turning. But that genuine excitement was based in the fact that he got to keep me, that he got to keep the relationship going. So he would always come with what was the action plan that was going to ensure I was going to get a different version than him? So the reason I stayed so long is I kept thinking, wow, if I walk away now, well, someone else is going to reap everything I ever hoped for with him. And if I walk away, then I'm just going to be so depressed because
Mhm.
I mean, he's just going to be this new creation and that's so common. Now, he was 14 years older than me. I met him when I was 20. So that was a red flag in and of itself. If you're entering an age gap at
Yep.
that young of an age, well, there were red flags all over from the start.
Mhm.
But I was at a phase in my life where maybe, I just didn't have that maturity yet. And there were a lot of things that really swept me up and hooked me in very early on. Um, so yeah, it can happen to absolutely anyone. And I
Yeah.
was very strong in my faith as well, just my faith in God, but he swept me away from that too. It was really like he posed to be a spiritual grounded guy, maybe not from the very start, but that was another theme that ran throughout. So it's really confusing. There's so many elements to it.
Do you mind sharing, Grace, a little bit about so you guys you met when you were 20, so he was 35-ish, 34,
Yeah, he was around 34, I believe.
34. But I'm curious for you, Grace, when you started dating, you had talked about he was in a program, I believe, if I listened correctly, he was already in a program when you met him.
So when I met him at his job. He was working at a gym at the time, and I met him in public there. And he wasn't technically in a program right at that time, but all throughout our relationship, he would re-enter programs because he also had struggles with addiction, which addiction is not the cause of their abuse, and I can talk more about that. But I always thought it was this us against the problem mentality. Like he's just this guy who wants to be a godly guy, who wants to be a loving partner, but he's just struggling with addiction. So to me, it was us against the problem, like us against his addiction instead of the fact that he was actually abusive and mistreating me. I couldn't see that. So I think he entered his first rehab program maybe a few months into when I knew him. And we weren't actually officially like boyfriend and girlfriend at first. I knew him for about a full year before I actually became like quote unquote his girlfriend.
Wow.
So it was, and I really truly hate this word, but it was very much like a situationship,
Mm.
which means you're not their significant other. You're just hanging out with them, doing things aren't in alignment with who you are necessarily. And so at the time, for me, it was just easier to do what I knew was wrong because I fell into things with him so quickly that once things became physical, I knew this wasn't in alignment with who I was, but that trauma bond can start immediately from the first time I spent time with this man and from the first time intimacy became a thing. It just started that addictive trauma bond that happens because of that.
Mhm.
So although
And
there
he's
was an
older,
element,
so
yeah,
he's guiding it too.
exactly, exactly. So like I said, for about a full year, it was that theme of like the trauma bond was even more intense because it was always that theme of, well, what could the potential be? What could we be if I just hold out hope a little bit longer? And he just sucked me in really, really fast
Mhm.
because
Well,
of that.
and one of the things that you had mentioned is he had the lingo. So
Yeah.
that part of your story we don't often hear when they've done treatment programs because I believe he went, was it inpatient for a little bit?
Anytime he went to rehab, which I think the whole time I was with him, which was over about 4 years, I was with him altogether, he probably went to rehab like 4 or 5 times
Okay.
over
Okay.
those years. And so the first times he went to rehab, I was not technically his full-on significant other yet. I was just the girl on the sidelines who he would call from rehab once in a while and tell me how good he's doing and how once he gets out, he wants to be with me. And so
Mhm.
basically, I was spending a lot of time with this person, and there were a lot of promises of, well, we're going to be a couple, we're going to be this or that. And then uh, I think about a year in after he did this one particular program, that's when he said, I want you to be my girlfriend. And that is when we started a full-blown relationship.
Okay. And then you had mentioned he would go to these his rehabs inpatient and he was like the star client.
Yes,
Hmm.
that was
Crushed it.
huge.
Mhm. Do you mind sharing more about what that meant, what you saw in that?
Yeah, that's really a good question. So when he would go to rehab, many of these programs were just regular rehab programs. The last one he went to was like a faith-based program. That was at the end of my story. But all the ones before that, he would enter these programs. He would be meeting with counselors there. He would also be meeting in group settings similar to AA, where you're conversing with other individuals who are in recovery. And he was the type that was almost overly honest and overly forthcoming with people to set that precedent of, hey, I've owned up to my past, I've owned up to my mistakes. This is the man I was, and this is the man I hope to become. He was very, very good at explaining himself. So when he would enter these atmospheres where it was all about healing and growing together, people thought, wow, this guy is really in this. He is amazing at having these deep epiphanies. And really, the term that comes to mind is self-awareness. So he was extremely self-aware, but it was often used to, again, rally people around him to have them go, wow, he is Mr. Accountability.
Yes.
So what was I hearing on the other side? I was getting when you enter a program, usually they're not allowed to call loved ones on the phone for a certain period of time to put
Mhm.
those restrictions in place. But he would often be allowed to call me from whatever program he was in a couple weeks in, and I would always get a call. Gee, I'm doing it. He would call me G. My full name is Grace. Gee, I'm doing amazing. This program has really changed me. I just cannot wait to come out of here and just be your rock, just be your everything. So, as a young person, not knowing much about the world of addiction or about the cycle of abuse, which
Yeah.
was actually the main problem, I thought, that's why I could never get out. Even though on paper, oh, I'm seeing someone who's in drug rehab, I'm seeing someone who doesn't have a job right now. That completely became besides the point. I was solely wrapped up in this person who was like Mr. Epiphany.
Mhm.
Oh, and he looks like a leader. He looks like
Yeah.
he's integrating it deeply. And every time you probably felt like he's going to now give me this thing that he's been talking about giving me since the beginning.
And that you
Right.
wanted. Yeah.
No, and again, he knew I was strong in my Christian faith, which many listeners may not even have that background, which is fine, but it's a huge part of our story because he knew that language specifically. So he would say, Grace, I'm a new man, and this is why.
Yes. I love that you just said that.
Yeah.
'Cause I was just going to ask you. So Janine and I are also both Christians and, love Jesus. And also we do hard work and sometimes cuss here and there. Um,
Right.
but I'm curious, do you think, when as Christians, when we meet someone who seems to be motivated, who has that quote unquote, air quotes, accountability, there's this part of us that wants to give grace, right? To give mercy, to give a second chance to. And I think we oftentimes, as Christian women, we can go into a space of like, well, who am I to not like give someone that, right? When our faith is literally based on forgiveness. And so I'm curious for you if that played a role in you staying.
It absolutely did. I think that was the biggest glue that held it together. And now in my life, having grown a lot, I just think about the scripture like you will know them by their fruit, by what character are they actually producing. And again, for those listening who may not relate to these topics, it just means you will know them by their continuous patterns and actions, not their words. That's essentially what that is saying. And so but when I was back in that time, I just didn't have the eyes. I didn't have the growth to understand that at the time. And so he could easily just give me words and I would be like, wow, he's so insightful. And he would use the scriptures and he would just seem totally transformed. But looking back, the red flags that proved that that wasn't true was the way he would continually push my boundaries. So it often comes out with the physical stuff, the physical boundaries they try to cross with you. He always made me really aware of like how many women he got in the past. That was another big theme, the triangulation of, well, I got so many women in the past, but it was always just swooped in there into the conversation because he wanted to create an atmosphere of if I walk away from this, again, there's going to be a line around the corner of people waiting to be with him. He had a way of putting himself on that pedestal that if I don't do certain things that he wants me to do, if I don't move the relationship at the pace or look past my boundaries and just give in to what he wants, it's going to come with some kind of adverse consequence. That was really the telling factor that he was not genuine and who he was claiming to be.
You know, this story, Janine, I'm curious if you're thinking the same thing.
You know
Your
I am, girl.
your story, do you know of Army Hammer?
No.
Okay, well, don't look him up. Um,
Well,
he's
you can if you want to, but
he's
yeah, he's a
terrible.
hot garbage mess. Not Christian. Like
No.
doesn't profess belief, but the operation style is very,
Oh,
very similar.
very similar. When I was listening to your story, I was thinking, oh my gosh, this guy is like Army Hammer. And he's essentially some like washed up actor who sells like insurance or something like that
Yeah.
now. Or
Mhm.
not insurance, timeshares. But
That's even worse.
I was like, insurance, you make good money. I don't know about timeshares. But yeah, so but when I was listening to your testimony through your show, I literally was sitting there. I was like, this is Army Hammer. Like the sexual boundaries, the physical boundaries, the coerciveness of that, like I can get any woman that I want because of whatever, whatever. And
Yeah,
it's it it's addictive for people.
Well, and we had
exactly.
one of our girlfriends come on early on in the podcast, Lexi, and she talked about spiritual gaslighting and manipulation, and then how sexual coercion comes into that. And we talk in our program quite a bit about Christianese, and we actually have the Christian power and control wheel that we talk about because those
Oh,
words and that meaning, and we can show that too later. It's fabulous. Can I
I've
tell
Yeah,
you?
never seen that. Yeah,
I'll
I need to
send
see
you
A
I'll
that.
lot of
send you
that.
the link. Yeah.
Yes, but those words, you're right, they carry so much power because when we are intermingling our spiritual development and our faith in our relationships, which is something we want to do, it is so ripe for manipulation, especially with an older person who's been on the planet longer and also has been practicing for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was that element of him being almost overly honest, where he would come to me and say, Grace, this is what my past was. I'm owning up to it, and this is why you're safe with me. And so, but then
Ah,
also in that, another big thing earlier in our relationship was he went through this period of time where he was going through an AA program, some kind of rehab he had just come out of. So he was continuing to work the steps of recovery. And he came to this one step and he said, I just had this epiphany that I have got to make amends with my exes who I mistreated. And I'm
Oh,
pretty sure
wow.
he even used the word abuse. Like, I got to make amends to them for the ways I mistreated them. And I was like,
Mhm.
man, well, surely I can't be in domestic abuse right now because he's admitting that element of his wrongs and he called them to apologize for being abusive. But here's the thing. This is why I just say this to women over and over again. I
uh-huh.
don't care what words they're using to address the behavior. I don't care if they're saying I was abusive. It keeps continuing. It really it is just so deep in them and I just want to tell women that it is if the behavior truly does continue on, even no matter how forthcoming they seem. It's
Yeah.
really scary.
Well, and what's interesting is him reaching out to them is coercive. That's manipulative,
Yes.
Right.
right? Him saying, you know what? I need to take accountability and call all my exes. That is 100% manipulation, one in your relationship, because he's showing you this quote unquote side of him that's so accountable and whatever. And also it's also manipulative to them because part of the amends, so I have family members in recovery, part of the amends is only doing so to their face if it's safe for them and if it's okay. So
Right.
he left that whole part out, right? He just inserted himself back into these women's lives who he probably terrorized and was
Right.
like, I'm so sorry, which is again manipulative. So even him doing the right thing with his brain and how he thinks was abusive.
Exactly.
Did he call them in front of you?
Yep, I was just gonna say
Ah,
that. That
okay.
was going to be
Uh-huh.
my next thing. So they were
Ah!
oh they were always called in front of me, and then he would step to the side and talk to them in
Oh,
the other room.
Oh,
So
I
he would
I
make
cannot.
didn't know that, girl.
yeah. Yeah. So or it was made known to me that he was going to call them on this particular day, and then it would happen on that day. So it was always a show of
Leave you
look at me.
anticipating as well.
Yeah, yeah. And
Hmm.
so, as things carried on, I would also notice there were always like jokes at my expense, like joking, quote unquote, about things that were hurtful to me or attacking of me as a woman, that I wasn't enough in some form or another. And his jokes would always come true in some form. You know, things he would joke about regarding his drug addiction or things that he physically wanted to do to physically harm me would literally come true after he joked about it. And so that's a huge, you know, when they joke like in foul ways, it is them telling you something.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. Oh,
And
Mhm.
one
yeah.
time he joked, he said, "Oh, next time we hang out, I want to do something to your face and break your nose." It was something derogatory. He was saying this in like a sexual form that I'm not even going to get into details, but he wanted to do something and break my nose. Okay. And then he said, LOL after this text. LOL, I'm just kidding. Well, down the line, he was very, most of it was like sexual abuse. So I won't say explicitly what the things were, but
Sure.
he would do things to women that were physically violent through the sexual coercion and then doing those actions on you, but causing physical harm to you, and then gaslighting you and saying, I wasn't being rough in that way. I'm just being myself, and you won't let me express myself how I need to. So after an incident with him, where I say that really hurt me deeply emotionally, that hurt me physically. You were being extremely violent with me, actually. And I didn't even want to do that stuff in the first place. But when I would say, hey, you were being really physically violent in that interaction, he would say, "What, that's violence to you? You know, that you're too sensitive."
Ah, or inexperienced.
Mhm.
Yeah. Or he
Or
would say, I was inexperienced and he had never had this problem with other women.
Mm.
It was only me he had this problem with.
Yeah, other women love it. Haven't you heard?
Exactly.
Other women are lining up around the block for this. It's so interesting, Grace, as I'm listening to you because it's so insidious, the blueprint for abuse, and it's so predictable in a weird way once you know. You just didn't know, and it's not on you that you didn't know.
Yeah,
He would have
exactly.
done very well in a domestic violence treatment program. That's the truth.
And
That's
that
what's so terrifying.
Exactly.
that's the scary part. He would have, and when you talked in your story about how he would snow some of these counselors, I told Janine this morning,
Oh, he'd be a leader.
this is one of those dudes that would just, but here's the thing. So I want to tell you something that we do, Grace. Um, and we're not perfect because we're humans and
No.
and we do get snowed, unfortunately. However, so Janine and I believe she was telling you right when I went and grabbed my water. We've been doing this work for a long time. Janine's been in the field for like 20 years. We've both been doing DV for about 10. So we are what I would like to say experienced with these individuals and with these patterns. And Janine and I run our most highest risk part of our program. And so, with a lot of these high risk dudes, and actually, I do think when they appear too good, they get automatically sent into this group
They do.
because of the way Janine and I can not kind of, the way that we can assess them now. He still, even though he would have appeared too good, he would have appeared as a star, accountability, all of that. When they're too accountable, it's a red flag.
Yeah, we have one of
Yes.
these. I won't give any details, but we had one of these recently, and we
Mm.
end up doing deeper assessment, sometimes for psychopathy, to see if they're an actual psychopath, because the things coming out of their mouth are so vastly different from the things that they've done to their partners.
But while being accountable. So Janine and I run these groups, we call them foundations, and we put guys like this in those types of groups to one, derail them. So they end up getting mad at one of us or both of us because we push to the point of them, we want to see where their anger goes. We don't like intentionally just want to, piss anyone off, but
Oh no, but we
You're
frustrate them.
challenging them. That's
Oh
the
yeah.
difference between therapy and programs that are run properly.
yes,
You're coming from the place of you're challenging the way they think. But
yes.
therapy often teaches them, let's look within and see where this comes from. So then the abuser goes, "Ooh, yay, let's look within and let me come up with new reasons why I'm like this and I can't help it." So,
And they get the lingo, right? So now
yes.
they learn they don't necessarily have empathy built within, but they learn this language that then teaches them to be a better offender. So with our foundations groups, we deconstruct essentially what they're coming with, and then we reteach what abuse is. And instead of going this empathetic route, right? Like, how do you have empathy for your survivor or to them for their victim, right? To us, the survivor, we teach them totally different skills so that they can hopefully be safer.
And
Yeah,
then
I
we
love
assess
that.
how they deal with their discomfort with us, because I'm going to tell you right now, we let them know.
Mhm.
We let them know, hey, okay, so I love that you love God. Good for you. Some of them do, and they typically tell us immediately because they think that this is going to help them excel.
We
Uh,
work
Right.
we work at a Christian agency, yeah, yeah.
so the
Interesting.
next
Wow.
question is, how do you reconcile that with the fact that you strangled her?
Mhm.
Bingo. I mean,
Yeah, there's
look,
just no
they can't be a new creation in Christ as they're claiming if they are even controlling the woman, if they are behaving in any of these ways, it does not align at all. And so,
no.
yeah, they're coming to you with that because they think it's going to put them in some kind of different category from the other abusers. And we
Oh
often
yeah.
see this happen. I see this happen in my work as well as books I've read where you'll see abusive men will point to other abusers who they consider doing something worse than them that they're
Yeah.
not currently doing themselves. And they'll act like that is a moral injustice. That is appalling that abusive man is cheating. Let's say he's not cheating on his partner, right? A lot of them may not be doing that act, which is confusing to survivors. So he'll point to the one who's cheating and say, "Oh my gosh, did you hear? I cannot believe he treats her like that." And they'll say that to their victim so that she kind of gets that internal temperature check on him thrown off. And she thinks, well, maybe I'm not being abused then.
Well, and what makes me crazy, and I'm just going to say it out loud, therapists helped him abuse you.
Right.
And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Therapists validate a narrative, often without challenging it. They sometimes make excuses for the person in front of them to make them feel better because poorly trained therapists are also uncomfortable with intense emotion. And they don't know how to confront because that's something that's really hard for therapists to do. But in giving emotional language and empathy language to an offender, you are making them better so
Yeah.
that they can get through a program, they can better manipulate, hurt, and keep their victim survivor in their life and their children. And
I'm
it's
so glad you said
tragic.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is so on point. And most survivors I work with, if there's therapy involved with their perpetrator, their perpetrator is learning to say, "Look, I'm working on my emotional regulation."
Yep.
That's a term they learn from their therapist.
Yep.
Mhm.
"Look, I'm working on my core childhood wounds, that things that when I was sexually abused as a child, or but it could be anything, right? Whatever their therapist is now pointing to, he's using as the new carrot to dangle in front of her face, saying, "Look at me, I'm emotionally regulated now." Well, abuse is not about emotional regulation in the first place. It's about challenging the way the a perpetrator is thinking, right? They believe it's okay. It comes
Yeah.
from their values and beliefs. So then meanwhile, some therapists will say to survivors I work with, like, "All right, well, let's look at your side of things." First of all, there is no her side of things.
Mm-mm.
Abuse is solely a problem of the abuser.
Yep.
And they'll say, "Well, you need to work on your communication." And that is the most damaging thing you could say to someone. Telling a survivor, "Hey, there's one more angle that you could try to make this work." That's what her perpetrator is saying too. They always
Mhm.
want you to think there's one more angle you could attack this from to make him be different.
Yep.
That's why
I
people
worked
stay.
for 6 months with one of my best friends to leave her abusive husband. Worked with her, helped her, supported her, and she was so scared. And this is one of the strongest women I know, reduced to rubble,
Mhm.
just rubble by this man. And the police came. We worked out a really safe strategy for her to leave. Fortunately, one of her friends works in this area, which what a privilege to have somebody who can, for free, help you figure out a way to get out, right? I get to her house the day that she left, and she's just a puddle on the floor, and I'm so proud of her. And I don't really know what to say, but I'm just there, physically there. And the police come because he's driving all over looking for her, right? And he's blowing up her phone and he's saying all kinds of crap and whatever. And the police tell her, first thing they tell her is the thing I'm so afraid someone will say. Well, what do you expect? You took his son.
Mhm.
Not she
Insane.
left a note that she had him. She handled this as safely and kindly as possible. You're going to get to see your son. I just need a day or two. We're going to figure out something that works. Like really de-escalated
Mhm.
the best of her ability. And that was the first thing law enforcement said to her. And it just
Yeah.
took everything out of her,
Mhm.
everything we'd worked so hard on. And so, yes, when a therapist says, hey, you need to just communicate better or be more present or more understanding when he tells you these things, oh my gosh, we are teaching codependency.
Yep.
Yeah. And you're hearing that from someone who technically has licensing. So that makes the gaslighting worse.
Yep.
I'm telling you, people who have licensing and therapy, like if they do not understand domestic abuse, the cycle of abuse specifically, you're not getting the correct advice.
Oh,
And so
great.
really, I mean, what I really want people to see is abuse is really just about them darvoing you, deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. And that was like the second whole half of our relationship was just me starting to truly believe, what if I'm abusive? What if this is about character flaws in me and I'm missing out on some kind of blessing and I'm just not appreciative of him enough because he would always tell me, you are just so ungrateful. You're so unappreciative. I'm doing this program because he later went to a faith-based program for a full year to get on the right path. And he would tell me that whole year, you are so ungrateful of everything I'm doing up here for us to make myself a better man for us and you. And you just
About
don't give me the credit I deserve. So I really started to believe I'm a horrible woman. Maybe I am causing this because I'm just not giving him enough credit.
Oh,
I'm curious, Grace.
mm,
Did you, I mean, obviously in the moment you felt this way because this is part of your story is you felt like he could change,
mhm.
right? Do you think he wanted to?
I think I think a large part of him did want to, yeah, but it's a matter of realizing that the again, when we it comes down to really understanding what abuse truly is. It is truly, when we think about belief systems, that is ingrained in them from a young child in some form.
Yes.
And his father was also abusive.
I was going to
S-
ask if you knew any, like, I'm sure you do, but if you
Yeah.
want to share any of like a little of what you know about his history.
So I think the desire to become a better man, I think that just partially came from him just wanting to feel like he was a good man, right? Everyone wants to feel like they're morally superior in some way. And so I think part of it was him wanting to progress in life, wanting to be better, wanting to reap the benefits that that would bring, right? Because being an upstanding person, well, that's going to reap the benefit of getting to keep your relationship, which they want to keep a tight grip on that, on you, because they're controlling. And they want the benefits that come with being good. They get more credit from their circles, the programs they're in. So I think there was a genuine excitement. However, again, it comes from their whole upbringing, not just their upbringing, but just for some reason it is ingrained in who they are. And so I think to some extent that's why the problem remains.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you have a point in time or a point where you realize like and I know like throughout your story there's points where you're like this isn't right. He pushed my boundaries. I don't feel safe. And then you switched into the space of like, well, maybe I'm the problem. Was there a point where it was like a really solidified something's really wrong here?
Yeah. I would say it was I would say it was mainly on our honeymoon, right? Because I was always told once we get married, we'll finally be able to live together and things will be better. And before that, I knew things were really wrong. But when we went on our honeymoon, it was like all hell broke loose again. I mean, he became sexually abusive again, physically violent in that specific form. He told me that he didn't want me to talk to my family on the trip, but he would disguise it as now that we're one, now that we're husband and wife, you need to practice, get coming away from your family and growing closer to me. Well, that was clear isolation.
Whew.
And now that was still confusing to me, but that was the moment where I thought, this guy is seriously a manipulator. And I was starting to see that this was for the purpose of isolation. He framed it as, I want this to be a no phone trip. He said, Grace, I just want this to be about us. It's our honeymoon. So don't text your grandpa, who I was really close with my grandfather at the time. Don't call your aunt or uncle. Don't talk to your parents. I just want it to be you and me. And so That was interesting. And I remember when we got off our flight, I remember he shoved me in the airport. I was walking in front of him and he shoved me in public, but we were in the Dominican Republic. Okay, so now we're in another country. So I guess he thought he could get away with it there for some reason. And I said, looked back, I said, why did you just push me? I didn't push you. I was trying to get you to walk faster. Okay, so for every next action that they take, there's always this plausible deniability they create that makes you say, maybe he was just trying to get me to walk faster. And it's that continuous pattern of being told you're overreacting, you did not see that correctly.
Gaslighting.
That is why you reach a point where you become completely in this place of cognitive dissonance where you have no bearing on what is right and wrong. They train you to ignore your internal alarm system. That's all abuse is, training you to ignore your internal alarm that says this is not right. Now you're taught you're not allowed to trust that. I'm actually your voice of reasoning. And they make it such that you don't have any anchors around you to anchor to. And
Mm.
not only that, but when they're weaponizing your faith, now you don't have your faith to anchor to because they are trying to be your voice of your walk with God as well.
Oh, Grace,
So,
I'm really struck by that story because first of all, we hear so often that abuse not begins, the physical parts sometimes begin after people get married or take a big commitment like move in together,
Or
get
have a
engaged,
kiddo.
those or have a child. Yeah. And I'm just so struck by just your precious self getting ready to go on your honeymoon and take this trip and getting shoved in an airport and then being gaslit to believe really in essence you weren't walking fast enough.
You were the problem.
yeah. Yeah. And in between on the honeymoon, there would be days that were amazing too. So we would go on these excursions and he would be like, let's just start clean slate today. Let's finish out this trip and have the best time. Well, that was made such that when we returned from our trip, he didn't want me to then go to people at our church and say, hey, I think I'm being mistreated by him. He made sure we ended the trip on a good note so that I felt like I lost my justification or lost my opportunity to bring it up to people.
You must have felt like you were losing your mind.
Yeah, because by the next morning, anytime an incident happened with him, he would wake up the next day and be like, gee, let's go on a date. Let's go to the gym. Let's work out together. He would act so normal the next day that I felt like I would always lose the chance to bring it up again. So I would say that honeymoon was really when I said something is seriously wrong. And he like abandoned me multiple times at the resort by myself. He went off doing God knows what. And again, just the sexual abuse was terrible. He was very sadistic, like just doing horrible things that I couldn't. But I was always told this is normal. Like this is a normal thing. Even though he made me black out, he made me literally like when you faint, you feel like. I mean, that's how aggressive he was with just forcing things and I blacked out once and he just walked around me and said, I can't do shit with you. And he walked away.
Again, treating you like you're insufficient, inexperienced, like you can't keep up with him. And I don't know if you were raised in a purity culture dynamic, but we've talked about that a fair bit on the podcast, how that sometimes sets us up to be victimized in this way because we we're sort of in this push pull. We don't learn all the healthy boundaries. We don't learn enough about sex. And then we end up with this person who, in this case, is older, more experienced, feels free to let you know and remind you how experienced he is. And then you're not fulfilling his need
Yeah.
unless you're willing to be abused in this way.
Well, and I was
Yeah.
just going to say too, because, and you had mentioned that some of this was happening before you were married as well, but it sounds like he would like try to stop. And then during your honeymoon, it was like, here we are again.
Mm.
Yeah.
I've heard individuals say, specifically survivors say, Christian survivors, they would say, well, they said that we could do whatever we want now that we were married. Like anything was a go.
Yeah, I have my own opinions on that.
Oh yeah, no, it's awful. And you
I
know,
do.
yeah, same. Well, and I can't remember what year it was, but it's not that far off for when it became illegal, like rape became illegal in
70s. It was like in the 70s that
70s.
for when rape became illegal in a marital partnership.
Yeah,
And that was his excuse. Well, now that we're married, we can do whatever, and the bed is undefiled or something. I forget what he said, but that's not true because he was doing things that were causing me physical harm and pain. And he would even go to people at church and be like, is this normal to ask of my wife to do with me? And people would tell him, like, no, we don't. That's something that you probably shouldn't be doing. And like, he just would blow past anything and just insist and insist. And that was just so traumatic. And I just think it comes from abusive men are so attached to doing certain acts with you because they want to degrade you, because
Yeah.
they've been addicted to porn in their life and they are trying to force things on you. And so that is not okay in the context of
No.
marriage if you're doing something that's harmful emotionally or physically to your partner.
ever,
Well, and the
ever.
overlap between domestic violence. So in Colorado, the board is the Domestic Violence Offender Management Board. Then there's the Sex Offender Management Board. They're like this. There's a
Yeah.
ton of overlap, which makes Colorado very cool. And in the beginning of my career, particularly working with DV, but even before then, domestic violence providers were like, it's not the same. Like they're not the same. We need to keep this really separate. And I still think to a degree when it comes to pedophilia in particular, we got to be a little bit careful. But when it comes to your intimate partner, the rate of sexual abuse is so high. And I don't think Nat and I even have a sense because so much of it doesn't get talked about. And we had a situation a couple of weeks ago where a man in the group was finally able to say something that didn't even occur to Natalie and I
Because we're
about
women.
why this man had hurt his partner sexually at the end of their relationship. And we had tried everything, girl. I mean, we sat with them, we took it apart, we deconstructed, we did all of this. It took a man in the group to say you wanted to have the last word. You wanted to be the last one to have her in this way. Did not occur to me, and heads are bobbing around the room. They
I
all were speaking in this code that I didn't
we didn't get it.
understand.
We didn't
So,
understand.
a domestic abuser in the group admitted that the reason he was sexually violent was to essentially put his marking on her or
Right.
or mark his
Have a
territory
last
such
call, have a last
Word,
last
have
essentially.
a
word.
last word. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
And see, that proves that abuse is not an anger management problem, or
No,
else why I always say, why aren't they walking
no.
around punching people at the grocery store? Why aren't they punching their boss and degrading people and be it's
And
a
it's not a substance problem. When I get drunk, I do
exactly.
the line dance, which I also don't know how to do. But it's not a substance abuse
No.
issue either.
No.
You are so
Uh-uh.
right.
No. And so, especially with my story, like they are attached to degrading you. Okay. They are attached. That's why when you suggest, hey, maybe we shouldn't do that act, I don't like that.
Mhm.
They find so much offense in that they have to find a way to do that with you because they're literally attached to dominating you in that way and feeling like they have that last say.
And
So,
it's almost like they have to prove it to themselves,
yes.
right? They have to
Can't
prove
feel
it to
it.
themselves. Yes.
The porn connection is
Mhm.
I can't feel the pleasure, the whatever that I want to feel anymore unless I light up this part of my brain. And the threshold for lighting up that part of my brain keeps going up.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
is ultimately why people get murdered.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
because we
It's,
push that envelope, push that envelope, push that envelope.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
One of the things, Grace, that I really appreciated that you've said a few times is, you talk a little bit about red flags and very specifically talk about how, and Janine just saying how this is how women get murdered, how strangulation is not a red flag. It is attempted murder. And I was like, hell
Yeah.
Yes.
yes,
For the
girl.
people in the back.
Like attempted murder.
It is
That
not
is what it is.
Right.
sexy. It is not
Not
part of a healthy, normal
sexual
sexual relationship. It is
ever.
unacceptable and it will get you killed.
One
Yeah.
of one of the things that Janine and I are gonna we tried it for a little bit. We're gonna bring it back now that we're a little bit more established. But one of the things that we would hear oftentimes from offenders is, there'd be clear, police report would talk about markings around their neck. And so we, like we've said, we hold them to the fire and they'd say, oh, well, that was just when we had sex. And I was like, no, that's not the case.
Mm-mm.
And so we have this tagline now, strangulation isn't sexy, right? Like
Yeah.
it should never be a part of any part of your relationship, sexual or not.
Mm-mm.
And that's again what I was saying with they're attached to those things. So you're dealing with someone, the same person in the bedroom as you're dealing with outside the bedroom, who's always questioning you and accusing you of something and darvoing
Mm.
you and giving you the silent treatment, making you question yourself. So what I say to people is where confusion lies, where there's confusion, there's no there's no area for that. And there's no area for that period. Really, like why are they so into doing that in the first place? It is not sexy. I'm not for it, but what
Mm.
I'm saying is where confusion exists, the abuser's claiming there's all of a sudden this perfect consent in the bedroom. There's not really consent anywhere in your relationship because you're constantly being manipulated by them. You're in the cycle of abuse
Yes,
everywhere.
it's
What
compliance.
exactly?
It's
I was
not
gonna say.
consent, it's compliance.
Yep,
Yeah.
compliance. We oftentimes hear stories, obviously from the offender side, and Janine and I will both sit there and say they were not giving you consent. They were being compliant because they're scared of you.
They're afraid of you. They're not enjoying this. They're afraid of
Yes.
you.
And they
Yeah.
don't want to say no because if they say no, what's going to happen, right? I'm
Yeah.
curious, Grace, for you and your story, what kind of support? It sounds like you are close with your family.
Hmm.
What kind of support did you have, or what do you wish you had when throughout your whole relationship, but especially during your honeymoon when you were like, oh no, this is
Yeah.
good.
Well, I'll start with what I wish I had, and this is what loved ones really need to realize. I I was never going to trust anyone who wasn't willing to sit with me and understand the reasons why I was actually staying with him. Someone who was willing to ask questions about the good times in the relationship. If people were not able to acknowledge that he was also on his best behavior, maybe even sometimes a larger percent of the time than the times that were really horrific, I no longer trusted their opinion because everybody was coming at me saying, Grace, he's horrific. You're in a bad situation. Leave him. Leave, leave, leave. Well, no one ever took the time to say, you know, how does he act when he's really good to you? No one ever helped me look into that a little further because that's that was the point that I was so stuck on. Why can he be so self-aware and also continue to do the same behaviors? So anybody, I mean, their just advice became completely mute to me, and I became I would lie to everybody to keep control. I really became controlling as well, not to my partner, but I became controlling. Like I wanted to keep full reins on the relationship as far as when I was going to leave on my own terms. I lied to people like my family, people at church, because I was just convinced they didn't get it and that I was going to lose something amazing because they just didn't understand. And so my parents at one point actually kicked me out of the house as a measure to try to put on some tough love and say, Grace, if you don't get away from him, we can't continue to just support this. And they truly meant the best in that. I have a good relationship with them today. But that only pushed me further towards him because it helped boost his narrative of your parents are not for us. You're just talking to people who hate me, Grace. Why do you run to other people with our problems?
You're
So,
immature. Why would you listen to your
yeah.
parents? You're a grown up.
So all that did was help him isolate me more and say that I couldn't be talking to people who weren't for the benefit of our marriage now that we were married. And he actually made me call my dad one day in front of him and say, or no, I'm sorry. He called my dad in front of me while I was sitting right next to him. And he told my dad, he said, I'm going to give you two options. You either gain a son or lose a daughter. He
Wow.
told that to my dad on
Oh my God.
speakerphone with me. He said,
Oh,
Mr.
Grace.
Blank, he said, Mr. Blank, you either you either gain a son in me as her husband now, or you lose a daughter. And how sickly prophetic is that when you think of an abuser, like your life is in danger with your abuser technically, but he meant it in the terms of you're going to lose access to your daughter, but it also had double meaning. You're going to lose her altogether.
Mhm.
And I
Grace.
had to sit there dead silent and hear my dad just be crushed. It was,
Mm.
oh, I should have told that in my story on my podcast. I forgot about that.
Grace, this conversation, I cannot tell you how much you are making me think today.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm so great. I mean, we need
Yes.
you elevated to a national stage. I mean,
No,
and
I'm literally thinking that.
I'm not just saying that. I want
That's
Oh,
so
yeah.
to
sweet.
be clear.
But
Not,
yeah, you have to understand in all of this, my ex was actually posing as the peacemaker.
Oh, of course it
So,
was.
so in saying and acting like he was coming down hard on my dad, he was acting like he was the one who was stepping up and doing what needed to be done
Manly thing.
to preserve the health of the relationship.
Mm.
but this thing that you are helping me see that I know intellectually,
Yes.
but the way that you're able to put words to it
Mhm.
is clicking in my brain in 1 million ways. And it's so powerful because I've been the bossy friend. We literally just talked about this in one of our last episodes where I'm fiercely protective. And so if somebody's messing with my people, I just will step in there and handle business. And what you lose in that is the other person's autonomy, agency, their feelings, what they need. And it's such an incredible reminder, Grace, to people who are loving
Mm.
the people in their life so hard, but doing sometimes the wrong thing
In doing that.
in doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Grace,
That's why
you.
my biggest advice that's why
Oh,
my biggest advice to loved ones of survivors
yeah.
is ask them questions surrounding the good times.
Yeah.
That's how you build a bridge of communication because the abuse victim is always going to go to the person who they trust most is not going to force their hand and tell them they need to leave. Whoever they know is not going to tell them to leave. That's the person
Yes.
they're going to go to.
Well,
Well,
and it's the first thing they teach you with substance abuse
yeah.
is why do you love it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you love it? Not don't do it. Why do you love it?
Like,
Bingo.
what is it serving you? And I
Yeah.
think every survivor no one stays. Here's the thing.
Mm-mm.
No one stays if there isn't good.
Mm-mm.
That's just the truth. And the scary thing is because the lows are so low, but it makes the highs so high, right? And so
Makes
that's
me feel high.
hard. It makes you feel high, but you feel so loved, you feel so cared for. And so I I mean, yes, I think it's so important for survivors to trust their supporters, right? And I love that you have a good relationship with your family. And like you said, they didn't, I mean, obviously they weren't versed in abuse, which like, thank God they weren't.
Yeah.
And also it didn't serve you because kicking you out, ex exactly what you said, did the opposite of what they were hoping for.
Right. It helped me reaffirm my own narrative too. So while I was with an addict who was abusive, I was also in a full blown addiction of my own, full blown addict mode. I mean, again, the lying, the highs. I mean, when I was high with him, I was high. I mean, I have a theory that I don't want to minimize anyone's substance abuse addiction, but I think it can be as powerful as heroin getting out from an abusive relationship because not only are you that addicted in general, but you also the person who's like your drug can call you, can chase back after you, can email you, can I mean just relentlessly pursue you back. So you're not just dealing with a substance, you're dealing with an alive human
Yes.
being who
Well,
has the
and
potential to quote unquote change, which they won't.
it hits on so many things that substances don't necessarily hit on, right? It's this emotional, I mean, you can be emotionally attached obviously to substances, but it's this, you it's a loneliness piece, right? So when you decide to leave, now, I mean, they have dwindled you. Most survivors that I've met, when they first leave, they've dwindled some of these women to these places of like they have no identity anymore. That person is their identity. And so when they leave, it's like I not only don't have like the
Mm.
high feelings, the substance part of it, but I also have no idea who I am anymore. I don't know where my values lie. All your boundaries have been pushed to the nth degree. And so even in that,
Exactly.
that's why so many survivors go back is they're like, who am I
Mm.
without this?
Yeah. And even after my ex got arrested, I still promised him I would come back again. And there was a way I eventually got out. But I mean, I almost went back even after that. I was so brainwashed.
Mm.
I
So,
I would love, Grace, for you to share with us what that looked like for you to get out.
Yeah.
And what was like, yeah, just if you don't mind sharing that, like what was the most difficult part and how did you stay out at with the
yeah.
last time?
Yeah. So over the course of the whole relationship, he had a way of coercing me into being around his drug and alcohol problem. So he would often pose it as he wanted to just try to see if he could have like a beer, like one beer or a drink. He wanted to do this as an experiment, and he would frame it to me as if this was actually going to help him in his sobriety in the long run if he can remind himself that he's capable of like self-control, let's say. Looking back, this is completely BS, so
Okay.
manipulative. But right, so I was so tired of hearing how he wanted to be the leader of the relationship, and I just need to trust him with my whole being. So one night, probably like 6 months or so into our marriage, he said, I want to try having a drink. He did his whole selling points again. And he said, let me just see if I can have one and we'll take stuff back to the house and just order a pizza and relax for the evening. So I honestly, I did go along with his plan and I just said, okay. And he brought alcohol back to the house. And as soon as he started drinking, again, that switch flipped and I could even see it in his eyes that he was going to start berating me verbally. And sure enough, he started with the berating. This went on for probably like 2 hours, and I recorded 40 minutes of it because at this point I knew the next day I'm going to need to hear this to remind myself how bad it was because I would forget right away. I was in a stage where I was starting to document things so that I could remember how abusive he truly was. I still have that recording today, but anyway, he was just ripping into me and I was becoming really, really afraid. I remember he was like tugging at my arms and he tugged me by the arm and pulled me across the couch really hard. But he would never take an open hand and like smack me or something. It was always like, let me grab you hard by the arm and tug you. And then he grabbed me by the throat 3 separate times and held me on the sofa, but like intermittently. So
Mm.
now he's grabbing my throat and we're arguing. So now I'm really afraid of this whole throat grabbing thing. And that wasn't a normal thing for us. So now I'm really, really afraid of him. You know, he's continuing to drink. What is this night going to turn into? And I remember he made me stand against our wall and he said, if you move from where you're standing, you're going to get kicked. And he started kicking his legs at me. like he was laying on the couch right near me, like just missing me with his legs. So I wanted to just leave the house and go get my keys without further incident, but I couldn't because he told me I'm going to kick you if you move from where you're standing. And like a minute or two later, he jumped up from the couch and punched the wall. He launched himself at me and punched the wall right next to my head. And I bolted. I didn't even like look at him again. I bolted out the door, which was like right near me. And I rang our neighbor's doorbell because I was outside in the cold without my shoes. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a cell phone, keys, nothing. And I was just terrified. And they said, you have to call the police. We're not going to have you go back to the house now. Like now that we know your husband's being violent
Good.
with you.
Good.
So I was basically stuck in that then. And the police came. He got arrested that night for a couple DV charges because they could see the hole in the wall and my story matched up with everything. I just told them the truth. But it was like a light switch. After he got arrested, even after he also got in my car that night when he saw the police coming and he drove away in my car. He was drunk driving. He threw up all over my car on the interior. He was off his rocker. I mean,
Mm.
and but it was like a light switch. I felt so sorry for him after that. He was calling me from jail, please pick up. I don't think he could leave a message, but calling me off the hook from jail. And I just immediately felt like so sorry for him. I thought I've got to get these charges lifted. I've got to promise him I'm going to come back. So I immediately started calling friends and family saying, it wasn't that bad and just trying to cover for him and lie and
Trying to make a way path, like a path back
a
for him
path back. So yeah, I started making a path of least resistance to be able to put this back together with my own
immediately.
hands. Yep. And mainly it was again through the lying. So I ended up having to go back to my hometown. We were living far up north in a state far up north in the US because he had went to this year-long faith-based rehab program up north. And we decided to live there after we got married so that he could remain plugged into his community there for support. But they ended up turning into my support system, and I'm still close. I met my best friend there, my absolute best friend. I met her at
Wow.
that church up there. She was a huge reason I got out, but it's crazy. Like his support system that he initially won over, which was by being like Mr. Star of the program, right? Because even as strict as they are and as much as they try to put in place, he made them think he was deserving of all the lenience and deserving of all kinds of special privileges that other men in the program weren't getting. So that's why he was allowed to continue pursuing a relationship with me because he really pulled the wool over their eyes and made them think he's a self-aware, amazing guy, right? So
Mhm.
professionals are not immune to being convinced by these guys. So
No.
anyway, by the end, everybody up there turned into my support system, and they were now telling me, Grace, this is
Yes.
abuse. We
Yeah.
see that he is actually abusing you. And our pastor's wife was the first person to use that word to me. She said, this is abuse. I'm
Mm.
telling you what this is right now. And so I started then like not giving people the full story because I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to force me to leave him. But at the same time, I still like wanted that support. I still wanted that temperature check from them, but I didn't want to be forced. So even though there were certain points where I think they could have done things slightly different with him as someone who was part of their program, I do see in the end that they were that voice of reasoning in the end for me. And so I promised him I was going to come back to the marriage. I was the one who broke through the no contact order at first. Or no, I'm sorry. He called me. He called me first from like a hotel one night. And he said, he just called me and I broke down and I said, we're going to make this work. I think I wrote him a letter as well. All the reasons why this was my fault, why our marriage was going to be amazing. And we just went back to talking like a normal couple again. And that normalcy, that return to normalcy with him was what my big wake up call was. I think I needed one last shock to realize, oh my gosh, I'm really about to go back to him. I needed that one last shock of reality to ask myself, is this what I really want? Because I knew if I went back to him this time, that was going to mean probably getting pregnant. That was always his first order of priority. We need to have a baby now.
Gosh, yes.
But it was always the language of, I want to get you pregnant. Like
Oh,
that kind of territorial
yeah.
Ooh,
language,
yeah.
like get you
Yeah.
pregnant,
Okay.
like put
Yes.
you on lockdown further.
Yes. Yeah. And then you're forever stuck.
Not
Yeah.
have a baby together and build a family together. I'm going to get you pregnant.
I mean, it was a mix. It was certainly a mix, but that language was there. Like, you
Mm,
won't let me do
Mm,
this because they see any form of you
mhm.
putting boundaries in place as a form of like them having a restriction or a boundary. And
yeah.
abusers are so offended by restrictions and boundaries.
Yes,
Yeah.
they
And
really do hate that. Yes,
I
they.
wasn't even on birth control at the time because I just didn't want to be. It's fine if you are someone who is, but I personally didn't want that. And so it was an even bigger risk that
Mm,
I was like, I'm not on birth control. He's offended by using a condom because he sees it as a restriction. And just,
mm.
I was like, if I go back this time, that's going to be his first order of action is to do
Yeah.
that.
Well, especially because things escalated
Yes.
Yep,
and he got arrested for domestic violence. That was 100% going to be next. And also, Grace, any survivor who goes back after things have escalated that much, there's that much more of a risk of lethality.
exactly.
Because
So
he knows
That's
you're going to run.
because he put your hand, regardless if you put pressure or not, it doesn't matter. He strangled you.
mhm,
Yes.
And anytime strangulation happens, femicide goes up 75%.
exactly. Hmm.
So you were not only going to probably get pregnant, but you potentially could have died.
Exactly. And so I want people to hear, for those of you who are feeling like maybe you're in an abusive relationship and you're feeling guilty for being strategic behind his back, that is what I had to do to ultimately get out.
You
So I
have
had
to.
to be very strategic where I was no longer telling him what my next move was. But often people choose to not be strategic because they feel sorry for him. They feel like
Yes.
it's reinforcing that narrative of maybe I am abusive because he's telling me that I'm actually sneaky for not being forthcoming with him. Well, that's what it takes to get out. I had to actually, now that I was technically back in it and acting like we're talking as husband and wife again, I had to actually create a new, like sort of like a new incident that would allow me to get out again. Not
Mm,
putting myself in danger in any way, but
Hmm.
I had to create like a new boundary line to have him respect his no contact order again. So now we're talking through a no contact order and I'm allowing it. So
mhm,
what I decided to do, I decided to come to him and say, "Hey, actually, it would really show me that you're actually a changed man and help to rebuild trust if you respect the courts by following your court mandated order. It would really show me that you are different, that you are not a liar, and that you're respecting the courts if you follow your order." And I said, "That is what I want." So I used my no contact order as leverage to
mhm.
have an excuse to cut contact again. But I knew he wasn't going to respect that.
That's
See?
exactly right.
And then he violates it.
Yes. Not that I wanted to like have to report him again.
No, and by
Because,
the way, it is not entrapment. I had to argue with a police officer about this. If
You told him
you
to stop.
if you
yeah, I told him
say
to stop.
honor the thing that the court said and you actually hold him to that thing, it's not entrapment when he doesn't honor it.
Exactly.
It's just him doing a him thing.
And he was the one who first called me and broke his no contact order
Yes,
from the
he did.
start. So anyway, he starts violating it again just by sending me photos of like mail I got to our house and telling me he almost got in a car accident, like making up like these fake emergencies
Yeah.
of reasons why I have to contact him. So now I started responding to him as if I'm thinking of things in terms of documentation now.
Mm.
So anytime he would violate his no contact order, I would respond in a text and say, I asked you to respect your court order, no contact order. That's all I would say.
Girl.
So this
Get
happened
it.
like probably like 4 or 5 times, and I didn't even have to wait that long.
Yeah, they
But
come into treatment, they're like, that's a setup. I'm like, no, that's a healthy person doing normal things.
A healthy thing. Asking
and
you to respect a literal law.
part of me thought, well, if I warn him, maybe he will respect it. Maybe it'll just give me space from him. But it continued. So one night I said, you know what? It's been like 5 times now of me warning him that if you don't respect this, there's going to be a consequence. And I reported him, and they arrested him that same night for his violation of bail. And so he got a new charge, violation of bail conditions.
Mhm.
And after that, that is what got him to stop contacting me.
Mhm.
And then what I did was I kept paying our rent, like our apartment rent and stuff, so that it would give me enough time to continue detaching from him because I still at that point didn't know 100% that I was going to move forward with divorce. So I actually utilized that time to think about what I want without him yapping in my ear. So I continued to pay all our bills as usual.
Yeah.
Now you would think he would think since I reported him to the police, we're done. But that's not how abusers think. It's not done until
No,
it's done.
No.
no
So
way.
he's still thinking, well, maybe we still have a chance, but he's not contacting me. So it was the perfect scenario for me to not have that pressure of him thinking it's done, because that's when they escalate. So
Yeah.
I could keep him at bay while continuing to act like I'm doing business as usual. So he thinks maybe. And that is what allowed me to get like several months of just peace and quiet so that I could reach the point of being ready to file for divorce. And then when I filed, I was fully ready, fully detoxed from him,
Mm.
not addicted anymore. And
Mm-mm.
then he got served with divorce papers while we had the no contact order. And that's how he found out we were done.
Girl,
Yep. Girl.
friend.
And by the way, that what you
Yeah.
just described, okay,
Yes.
that is the safest,
Yeah.
best way to
To
leave
get out.
an
Yeah.
abuser. You just gave a textbook
Yeah.
example. When they're in treatment with us, it's I was set up. I can't believe she's so cold. I got served with papers. Well, it's all bullshit. That's all bullshit. What
Right.
the way that you did that, Grace, is textbook the safest way to leave. And it's still dangerous to leave, but that was the
Exactly.
safest thing you could have done for yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly. So people say, a no contact is just a piece of paper, but I utilized that no contact order to draw a boundary line that
Yes,
I did not have to draw myself. I could just blame it on the no
that's
contact
exactly
order
right.
and I could just use that. And I used it to just detox from him. I used it to break the addiction to him.
Yes.
Yes. And what I want to add to this too, Grace, for people out there who are in this situation and maybe the court is dropping the hammer and they don't know what to do and they want to leave, there are victim advocates
Yeah.
involved in the court system and they're not all perfect. There are some that are amazing and some that aren't. Ours is amazing. I've known ours for 15 years, the one we use.
She's the best.
But they will guide you through that process and you can blame treatment and
Yeah.
you can call the victim advocate and say, hey, he's calling me drunk at 10 o'clock at night and he's not supposed to be drinking. We will respect your confidentiality to the best of our ability. He'll just get a random UA the next day
Yeah.
or 2 days later.
And then we blame it on that.
And then we blame it on that. And
And
then,
it,
you're
yep. And
in
then we
trouble now.
continue. Yeah. The goal is always survivor safety.
Number one, survivor safety.
And yeah, so the beautiful thing, and I think other states are starting to get on board with some of this, but the beautiful thing
They
about
are.
Colorado is the system that's put in place. Again, nothing's perfect. No system is perfect. Janine just shared the example of the police system in, one of our towns in Colorado. I don't know,
The
like
town that we work in, let
yeah,
my friend
we'll
down.
just name it Parker, Colorado.
Get it together, bro.
They, no system's perfect, but the DVOMB and SOMB are really trying to put everything in place so that survivors and families can be safer. So I'm hoping
Yeah.
that other states are jumping on board. We had the privilege of meeting the Petito family recently,
We're gonna
and
see him again next week.
yeah, we see them again next week.
Wow.
And I think unfortunately, because of horrific situations, there's the silver line is that there's hopefully going to be more things in place to help survivors and victims and families of victims get the help that they need, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate that it has to come with individuals being harmed. Um, However, I am just, Janine and I are passionate about creating community safety. That's just one of our biggest goals. We want to get into the high schools and teach people about this because it
Yeah,
starts young. I mean, you were 20. It starts so young.
Well, and
it
I'm
does.
tearing up listening to you a little bit, and I'm not a big crier. Nat's not a big crier, but it doesn't matter if you are. It's wonderful if you are, but I have a hard time with that. But one of the things that I'm sitting here thinking, this is it. This is the why. This is the why.
Yep.
This is the why. This is why. This is why we do this. This is why we sit with these men is number one, you.
Yep.
It's you. It's not them. I love them. We want them to get better. I don't think the timeline of them getting better is worth staying with them, to be honest. I don't love when they stay together because if they're going to get better, the timeline to them getting better is not fast enough to keep the victims safe from further harm. It would come down the line, if ever.
Yeah, I think when abusers go to domestic abuser programs, I forget what some of them are called, the court ordered ones
Yeah.
or whatever, that can often be the biggest hang up. And
Yeah.
it just, when you think about rehabilitation for an abuser, it's like, how much can that behavior be rehabilitated if it comes from all of their core beliefs about how their partner should operate with them? You really have to teach them
Yes.
how to think about the way the whole world works.
Yeah.
Like they would have to
Differently.
relearn what to even think about the way the world operates and how they relate to it. It's really a mystery.
And
Well,
sometimes in the group, so Nat and I, in full transparency, we get some of the highest risk offenders in our area. We're known for it and we work together. So there's two of us in the room. We see everything. We're watching who's talking to who. We miss a million things because there's no way to capture it all. You could be the best therapist on the planet and miss something really important. But the feedback in the group when you have a random group of these men. So here's the difference between substance treatment and domestic violence treatment. Substance abuse treatment is here's this whole person. We need to get in there. We need to take care of their emotions. People who abuse substances tend to be a little bit more tied
emotional.
into their emotion, a little more emotional. Our groups look a little different than that. But these men do at times call each other out on the belief system. And that's when I start to see a shift. Like if somebody comes in and they're saying some really misogynistic stuff about using women, particularly sexually, someone's going to come out of their chair. You got four people laughing, but somebody on the other side of the room is going to go, I don't fuck with that, bro. I mean, that direct.
That literally actually happened in
Okay.
one of
And
our.
this happens a lot, and we see this in Lundy Bancroft's book too, where he also said some of the men in his groups, his abuser groups, some of the ones who were most willing to challenge the other men in the group are some of the ones that actually backslid the most into the behaviors,
Yeah.
because we see, and I think it really comes down to there's studies that prove that they keep abusing because they view it as being functional to them.
Yeah.
So abusers continue the behaviors because it works for them. They are attached to the benefits that abuse provides
Yes.
for them. So
Yep.
that's why it continues. And even some of the ones that challenge those other group members are some of the ones who, like I said in the beginning of this episode, will look to other abusive people and say, well, at least I'm not doing that. That's really bad. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's really complicated,
It's so
you know?
complicated. And it's, you said something earlier. It's getting at their belief system, and that's part of the deconstruction process, right? It's literally trying to, for lack of better terms, family patterns, strip that down and really identify what is this? Like, do you genuinely want to hurt people that you say you care about. And sometimes they say no, and I think it's true.
Right.
But like you said, it's so ingrained. And so it's how do we actually deconstruct them as a
Mm-hmm.
human being, right?
And that's if they're even in a program that's run properly. So that's
Correct.
even rarer. So, what
Correct.
I would say to women is, do you really want to be with someone who has to try so, so hard to be rehabilitated, for a lifelong rehabilitation just to treat you with decency?
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, that you have to look at it that way. They have to try so hard just to be a functionable partner.
Yes.
Yes.
Grace.
And I will tell you, I met my husband when I was 20.
Mhm.
If a man has to tell you, you're safe with me, I'm safe, he's never said that to me in
He's not
20
safe.
years. Who's gonna
Right.
say that?
He's not safe. If he's like, hey, I'm safe, he's not safe. Run.
No. If a man
Run the other
is
way.
using this kind of terminology with you, oh my gosh, they learned it somewhere.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, they're not that evolved. The
Mm-mm.
normal run-of-the-mill man who's a good man who has some sense of understanding of women. They're not love bomby. I'm sorry, that's not normal.
Mm-mm.
The love bombing, the therapy language, the this and that. And I'm sorry if you're in the 5% of men that's been in therapy your whole life and you're just that evolved. I really sincerely apologize from the bottom of my heart. But to the rest of you, we see you and we're coming for you. Like, if
Mm.
you are going to abuse women with the very language that people are using to try to help you improve your life,
Mm.
we are coming for you. And Grace, your message is one of the things that I think is going to help providers,
Yes.
therapists, women figure this out. That
Yes.
it is what it is, what it is. What they're showing you, how they're behaving in front of you, how they're treating you is who they are. Believe
Mhm.
it the first time. And you know what? If they get their life together and they come back 10 years later and they're figured out, cool. If that jives with you, but they don't need to stay and hope that this changes in the next 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years.
Yep.
We do believe fundamentally that people who are abusive can change because we have seen it and we do believe in that or we wouldn't do this work.
Yep.
However, every single thing that you have shared today,
Yep.
I 100% believe, and
Mhm.
I think it's a miracle. You're a miracle.
Yep.
Thank
You're an absolute miracle. And there's a lot of things that came together for
Mhm.
you to have survived and to be here articulating these things the way that you are. It is so unbelievably powerful. But as a therapist who works with these men, and we work with female offenders too, we spoke at a conference 2 years ago, and we spoke about female offenders, which is a specialty of mine. It is the minority. And most of the bidirectional violence, even that, there is a root of abuse in there
Mhm.
somewhere. And so, really looking at that the right way takes an awful lot of skill and experience. And I still think we're going to know a lot more in 10 years than we know today. But, girl, we spent the first 10 minutes of the presentation talking about why women are subjected to nonsense, why they're angry, why they don't know how to protect themselves other than sometimes resorting to violence. And the first thing that happened was women defended men.
Mhm.
In a
And
room full of women and domestic violence providers,
there's like 4 men.
the first thing women did was make excuses for and protect men.
Yep. Which is
Right.
interesting.
In a
Yeah, it's
training about how women can be violent, we are going to protect men. It's unbelievable.
Mhm. Mhm.
well, your work is important too. And I just hope, just again, the storytelling, sharing my story, I hope it maybe creates some light bulb moments for people.
Well, I got to tell you, Grace, and then we'll wrap up here.
Mm.
It actually created light bulbs
Oh,
within myself as a treatment provider. Janine and I are very confident in what we do. We are not pushovers. Janine Janine kind of makes fun of me. I walk like a trucker, right? Like I'm
We
5
laugh
foot
about this
nothing.
all the time.
I'm 5 foot nothing, like 115 pounds, and no one messes with me in our
No.
groups. No one. And they usually just say that I'm the mean one and that they don't like me. So, so we don't, the way that we do our best to handle these men is we are very passionate about that. But you have helped even like you've
Mm.
helped me see it from a different lens. And truly, like this morning, I was driving around picking up diapers for my
I know,
daughter.
because she called me.
I did. And I was like thinking about how I'm going to approach some of our people differently just from listening to your podcast.
Yeah.
And then
That's
now
amazing.
hearing you and letting us interview you and you sharing your story, I'm just sitting here. I'm like, you've woken up, you've woken me up.
Good.
So
Yeah. Wow.
I want to say thank you so
Yeah.
much. I hope that this can become a partnership, that we can check in with you. And yeah, we're just so thankful that you
Oh,
gave.
I want to bring you with us to Breckenridge. I'm already dreaming.
No, I'm
Don't worry this about me.
seriously.
I'm in a boat. We're
Yes.
always
We
dreaming
want you
that.
to talk at a conference with us. That's what we want.
Oh, when's the conference?
Next
We
summer.
we have one this
Oh,
summer
okay.
Yeah,
in
yep.
Breckenridge. It's gorgeous.
Yes, we'll get a suite or something for all of us. We'll
What
figure it
you
out.
Oh,
have to say, I agree with Natalie. I'm a different therapist because of this conversation today,
Yep.
and I have supported survivors for years. But
Yep.
what I have not heard is the way that you've connected very specific parts of the treatment process, being with a partner who's in treatment for a long time, with the faith integration pieces
Yep.
and the impact on a survivor of that.
mm,
Oh,
thank you so much. Yeah.
what a gift, Grace.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all
Yeah.
survivors have to do is share the most honest version of their lived experience.
Mm.
And that's where the education is. It's just through their lived experience. And that's what will
Mhm.
enlighten people. So
And I
thank you
want
so
to
much.
share with our listeners, Grace's podcast is called Why She Stayed. It's phenomenal. I was
Mm.
binging it. And I think one with what you share, with how you shared how you got out, girl, like write a book. I'm telling you.
Please, please.
I'm serious,
People
like
listening
write a
are probably
book.
like, wow, she's so evil for how she got. I'm just
No,
kidding.
oh, if
No,
anyone says that, they are
I
getting
know.
blocked.
way. It's
My
the
Yes.
grand
it's
plan.
literally the only
Like,
way, friend.
exactly.
No, please write a book. That's like textbook for getting out, quote unquote, safely.
Yeah.
But I want all of our people to know Why She Stayed podcast. Go listen to it. Listen to Grace's full story. We just got pieces of it here. Please go listen to her full story. She has other guests on there that are also phenomenal women who have found their voice and are empowered. So please, please, please give her a follow. And Grace, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This was an amazing podcast to be on, and I just appreciate any opportunity to reach new people. So thank you so much.
Oh
Yes.
my gosh, y'all follow her, Grace. Stay tuned, girl. I got all
We
kinds
got
of
plans
ideas
for
flowing.
you.
We got big plans. Everything you want to do, we got plans. Grace is our newest forensic bestie. Your bestie category. You're not even
Yep.
just forensic friend. You are a forensic bestie.
Yes.
We just appreciate your time today so much. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you again so much for your time and your story and just you as a human girl. We appreciate it. And as always,
Bye, forensic friends.
I'm Janine.
and I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening and join us next week for more crime, psychology, and heart.